The Beverly Council on Aging welcomes you to our program, Livin' the Good Life, designed to explore our beautiful city and the world around us.
Hello and welcome to Livin' the Good Life. I'm Bob Hobbs. My guest today is Sarah Wetzel, who is the manager of the Money Management Program at SeniorCare, offices in Gloucester. Welcome, Sarah.
Thank you.
And I suppose we should start by saying, what is the Money Management Program at SeniorCare?
The Money Management Program has been around since the 80s. It was started by AARP. And in Massachusetts, it's now the Massachusetts Money Management Program. You can receive these services in every city and town in Massachusetts, and they're free services.
They have somehow missed me, Sarah, because I cannot manage my money.
Well, I think the management part might be a little misleading. It's mostly for people with help, that need help with daily finances, just to stay independent.
Again, they apparently missed me, because nobody needs more help than I do. Now, when somebody comes into your office, or what you said, are they walk-ins, or do they somehow?
Well, the SeniorCare is located in Gloucester, but it serves 9 communities around Gloucester, and they coordinate services. The mission is to keep elders and seniors and they're living independently in the setting of their choice in the community as long as possible. So a lot of my referrals for the program come from the care managers there, but anybody, the Council on Aging, or that hear about people that might need a little help with balancing their checkbook, getting their bills paid on time, they can be referred to the program. There are income guidelines for the program that are now set with the federal income guidelines, so they're pretty much for Massachusetts. So for a single person, it's about $45,000, and for a couple, it's about $50,000. So that pretty much covers.
Is that the cutoff point at which they cannot get the service if they have to make over 45? Let's say me, if I make over 45,000, I don't qualify. Is that the answer, or under 45,000, and I need help?
Right now, there are free services, but if you can afford to donate, then it would be. If you're over income, then you can maybe pay for the service what you could pay.
Well, the 45,000.
Most of the people that I serve in the communities are well within the guidelines for that.
Yeah.
So the program really
I would be
works.
on financial life support if those are there for the guidelines. Yes, excuse me.
Well, it's hard to live on a fixed income. That's exactly what's hard, and so the program works with volunteers. It's volunteers that come forward to provide the services one-on-one in somebody's home for them. So I'm really glad to be part of a program that there are people that want to help people, and I can connect them. It's like a team of people helping people.
That part of it's wonderful.
And lots of times, things happen. You know, you might be getting macular degeneration, so your sight is less. Or I had a person that had the hand doesn't write the checks as well as it used to. They just need a little help. They can still sign them. So the program is really good to help people. They can trust this person because they're coming in one-on-one for the service, because what I do is recruit and train the volunteers that have to have an application with 3 references and a background check. And also an interview and ongoing training for the volunteers happens every other month over the year, so that the volunteers are supervised, trained and supervised, and that lets there's a trust that can develop, that you can trust this person with you because you're opening up your checkbook to, be seen, help with the paying of the bills, and also reconciling the bank statement.
Well, in my case, I mean, I can open the checkbook and write the checks. It's having any money in there to actually cover all of this nonsense that's the problem.
Right.
I found that once I retired, I worked 45 years at Suffolk County, I was still spending money like I was still making money.
That's the trouble. Yeah.
Which is a great plan for about 2 years, and then that hits a wall. Now, if in a case like that, or a case like mine perhaps, do you offer services that would say, well, here's what you're doing wrong?
Well, part of the program also involves a yearly income and expenses that the volunteer helps the person create, so that then you can see, I have this much income, but this is how much I've spent. So the volunteers can serve as a guide. They're really just a guide to gently suggest it's still your money, you still make the decisions about it, but it's a way to have somebody helping you say, well, maybe, maybe you should wait on this, or you need to do this first, or. But it's not, the beauty of the program is that the person themselves still has the control of their funds. They're the ones making the decisions. So.
Well, therein, in my case, lies the problem, because I have no control. And now, do you have is any part of the program saying, look, this is what you got to work with, and this is what you can do, and don't do this other stuff? Anything like that?
Well, it's a goal to do that with people, I think. The other, my program has received a financial literacy grant from the Women's Fund of the Essex County Foundation. So I've been doing these workshops at the Beverly Council on Aging. Tomorrow's the second session for that, where I'm offering a way to track your expenses and make a budget from that. What are your needs and what are your wants? And doing that hard work, it's hard to do, and you're the one that has to kind of decide what it is. But my volunteers can help with doing that. And then these workshops I've been offering, I hope they're helpful. The other part of the workshop I offered was a list of resources for people that you might not know about that would be helpful to stretch your money, with your prescriptions. There's an organization called Needy Meds that helps with prescriptions, or it's a great resource for finding out what insurance covers, your drugs. There are other things called benefitcheckup.org that's part of a council on aging. You put your information in, and you might not be aware of some services you might be entitled to. If you're a veteran, there might be some program out there to help you stretch your money. I mean, that's basically what you have to do.
You're right about the veteran thing. I am a vet, and I've had really good luck with the VA. But the financial aspects, I mean, I hardly pay anything for the care, and I get really good care. But I've asked, really, do they have any programs where they can take guys like me and say, look, you've got to keep yourself within these bounds, and this is what you've got to do. And see, when you are in my situation, I mean, you stretch your money by hoping you hit the lottery. That's what
that can be a dicey bit about the lottery, right?
That does present some logistical problems. But if I were to come under your care, and I am obviously qualified, and I say, well, here it is. Here's the mess I'm in. Where would you guys start?
Well, basically, it's your daily finances. What your expenses are, what your needs are for your rent, just basic food, where you're living, and how much debt you might have. I mean, there is a lot that you might have. So
no might about that one.
Well, it's not uncommon.
Yeah.
And I think the goal would be to understand, what your resources might be to help you and how to really save money. That's the other thing. It's always an individual thing. But I think the program, from my perspective, it helps people to have somebody else helping them to look at what's really what's happening.
And
They
clearly-
don't really, they're not in there to tell you, look, you got to stop it. You know, that's not really, you know, that mostly what it is helping, suggesting, guiding, and then you get to make the decisions. That's really what the program's about. And the other guideline for the program to really work is that the person receiving the services really wants the services, really wants somebody in there to help them.
Well, I do want advice, you know, and I agree with you. I really don't know what's out there in the way of financial service help, and I could use any suggestion that anybody has. But I don't know. I often think about things like, well, it would kill me to do it, but if I gave up my car, that's a lot of money in the course of a year, you know.
That's really right.
And I hope it doesn't come to that, but it is.
Well, depending on where you live, you can make that work out. But there are places around, and they're part of SeniorCare, medical drivers, that's the other volunteer to help with appointments. There's the ride, I know, that helps get people to other appointments, maybe out of town. I know that the bus service in Gloucester, you know, that people use that. It's not as easy, you know, not having your own car, but the car is quite an expense.
Very much an expense, by the way. The getting around, I suppose it would work in another way too, because if I were to do it again, gave up the car, how would I get around? I mean, I still work a few days a year at Suffolk Downs. I mean, Suffolk Downs isn't a real easy place to access without a car.
Might not be what you'd want to give up then. If you really are still driving safely and using your car, then maybe there would be some other way to...
And we can't even talk about my trips to Saratoga.
Right. No, that wouldn't be good to do.
But things I don't really want to give up. But, you know, short of being homeless...
we don't want you to be homeless. No, you cannot be homeless.
Well...
Advocate for that.
You know, it has its
Lots
appeal,
of people
as opposed to
advocate for
giving up Saratoga. I mean, we can talk about these things. Now, what is the most common situation for people that you deal with? Is it also like mine, where you retired but still spend money like you were still making money, or is it just people that
there is that, but there are also just the basic daily functions that might not work so well. A lot of people might just be in the program just having a little confusion, and sometimes the first thing that goes is being able to compute, you know, doing the addition and subtractions, and some people are a little overwhelmed with all the mail that comes in and separating the junk mail from the actual bills, and that there's a lot of people that really benefit from a volunteer helping them sort their mail and go through it. Getting rid of, you know, all those things you can sign up for.
Oh yeah, no, and it just keeps coming.
Organizing a place that these are where the bills are, these are where the bills paid are, these are where your statements are. It's just like an organization skills. Lots of people need that. I think the people that really benefit from it are people that are losing their sight. I think that's really would be very difficult to have sight and then know that it's declining. But to have somebody that you already trust in place helping you.
That's a very good point, because within the last 6 or 8 months, my eyes have given up the ghost, actually, and I am finding it difficult. I did do a thing with the junk mail and the bills for a while that I just threw everything away. And I thought that worked pretty good.
Don't throw away the bills, though. That's not a good idea.
My life was very good for about 2 months, at which point I had some splaining to do, like me.
Yeah, you can get yourself in trouble throwing away the bills.
Yeah.
It happens in a nanosecond.
That took a lot of talking to get out of that one. But the idea was...
But things do happen. I think that's when some people come on board. Like if you have a situation where you're hospitalized and then you have a rehab, and you can't get to your bills, so that's also a good place for this program to come in and really help, because the volunteers also can advocate for you. You give permission, to talk to them, and then they can advocate, this is what happened, can you forgive this or just pay that?
I'm glad you brought that up, because I was going to lead eventually into that. Do you do advocacy for reducing?
I use that word. It probably has a very legal term, but what they can do is speak for you. Yeah. If you're having trouble being clear, the volunteer, they it's often the case where you call with the person gives permission for the volunteer to, like with Verizon, if your bill's past due or if it got cut off, and just get it back on, maybe forgive the overdue charge or the, they do a lot of helping people
Do they?
like that.
Now we're going to go into the next step. Do they ever do advocate? Well, speaks to reducing payments.
I
to,
had
to
it,
meet
yeah, sometimes
the
that
current income?
happens. They can do that. It all depends on the person that you're asking for, what they're willing, you know, who you get and what they're willing to do for you. One person in the program, really, she's been with the person for a long time, and that person had debt due to not her doing the debt. It was somebody that misused her card. And she advocated with those credit card companies to get it reduced to just what the actual charge was and to pay it over time without more interest. And the person was able to do that. I mean, I think that's
a good
a
service.
really good, really good use of the services. And you hope that can happen, and you hope that you don't get there. And it also depends on the company. But if the thing I've found is if you have somebody that's willing to set up the payment plan and stick to it, then they are receiving their payment, that they're willing to do that sometimes.
I think, yeah, I've been told that, that many times, they'll stonewall you for a while, but this is credit card companies now.
Right. Well, this was
or any bill, right? But eventually they'll say, well, we should get something. Something is better than nothing, and that they will actually work with you. And but I didn't know whether your employees.
They're volunteers. That's what I call them. Volunteer bill payer. That's what they're called. Really.
Good. And boy, if anybody needs a bill payer, it's me. They won't send my bills to Saratoga. I don't understand. But that is tough, especially for seniors. You really don't know who to ask, or in many cases, you don't want to ask, for that kind of help.
There are other people that are losing their hearing, and then it's hard for them on the phone as well. I mean, it's just, I think that's what works well about these services, the one-on-one aspect of it, and the trust that can happen with the relationship. It's a giving and receiving, but to really have somebody that can help. Because some of these referrals that I get, there really isn't anybody. They have no family. There isn't anybody to really help them, and then that's a really good service for the volunteer to come in and help do that.
Well, my brother said that if I keep asking to borrow money from him, I won't have a family either, because he's going to start picking up the phone.
You better listen to him, Bob. You want to keep your brother.
I said, come on, man. It's all in the family. Okay. What is this basically for seniors, or is it available to anybody?
It is basically for seniors. I know SeniorCare now is serving people with disabilities. There's some that are maybe a little bit younger than 60 that can receive the services.
60 is the cutoff point?
60 is the age usually for our services at SeniorCare, so that's been part of the program. I've been in the program for 5 years this year, but SeniorCare's program has been going since about '95, so it's a well-established program.
Good program.
I have about 30 people in the program, so I'm a part-time, and I have about 34 volunteers, so I always need more volunteers.
People, you mean people that you're helping?
30 people that are matched with a volunteer that get services monthly. They come maybe once or twice a month to review the bills and reconcile the statement.
Oh, good. Well, so somebody to swing by, I'd be glad to give them all my bills. And
you still have to have the money to pay it.
Yeah, well, there's always that glitch and that fly in the oatmeal.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, and you said that people have to be referred?
Well, usually that's how there's a referral, so I know the contact information and a little bit about why they need the services, if their bills are piling up, if there's a risk of eviction, or if they have other family members, they have an emergency contact, what kind of insurance is in place, so that we know and also there are other questions about if they have pets or if they smoke. I mean, that I always try to match the volunteer in a place that's going to be comfortable for them. Lots of people can't tolerate cigarette smoke, so I like to know that, so I match them up properly. Some people can't, be around pets. So I always ask those questions to make sure that the match is going to work.
What would happen in the case of, I live in housing, so I see this fairly frequently anyway. People get really isolated, and they don't have contact with anybody that could make a referral.
Absolutely true.
How would that be overcome? Would somebody have to call you and say, look,
I know that
who might not be involved with them in any way?
I don't know what kind of housing you live in, but usually there's people in the building. Sometimes there are people in the building that can know about the services, or I know that the isolation is really
isolation is a huge problem.
It's a huge problem.
It is.
And that's the other thing that's good about having somebody come that's a volunteer to come in and help. Was sometimes the money management program might be the first people in, and then they say, do you think about needing Meals on Wheels, or there's this wonderful Beverly Council on Aging, you want to participate in any of those programs, because they're wonderful programs there. They might not know. I mean, they might be able to receive sort of help with their cleaning, or their
there's great
meal
services.
preparations, or Meals on Wheels.
The hardest part is to get that information out to people.
Right.
I mean,
That is the
by
hardest
its very
part.
nature, isolation means that you're not in contact with
that
these
is the
things, and you're not
hardest
aware of what programs are available to you. And especially the financial end of it, I guess. I suppose people.
Well, lots of people don't want to open up their finances to anybody. I mean, people are private, and they think that's, So it's a balancing act about who comes forward, and some might last just a little bit, but just that we're there to help them maybe think more about how much they'd been spending, even if that was only matched for a couple months. That's also a good service for people. So, but it varies, and because individuals are individuals. So
yeah, I would think that a couple of months would not be anywhere near enough time to break somebody as incorrigible as I.
No, but I was saying that
spending habits.
Even if it was only a couple months, at least that's opening them to what maybe they need to think about. Lots of times people are matched for a very long time in my program.
I would think,
because
it's not something you didn't.
They're now not legally blind. They're blind, or they really have. They're friends. They're more than just their volunteer bill payer. They become.
I would think that makes everything easier when you get to that comfort level. I know that you don't get into that situation overnight, and you're not going to get out of it overnight. So I think there would almost have to be long-term commitment. What's the average length of time that you?
Well, it varies. I've
work
had
with people?
somebody that's been with somebody for over 12 years. That's a long time.
That's a long time. Yeah.
And I've had others that have just been maybe 6 months, 3 months, but mostly it's a long-term kind of commitment. And I have some volunteers that do winter somewhere else, and so they have 2 volunteers, one for the summertime and one for the winter time. That can be worked out. Sometimes we can work out schedules for people.
Wow, that's a multi-state problem. I'd like to have it. Believe me, I'd like to spend the winter in St. Thomas. So, give me a place. Do you have any volunteers in St. Thomas?
It's the volunteer that goes.
Yeah, I'm looking for a job as a cabana boy, but no takers yet. So so the whole money thing is falling apart right there too. How do you do with the multi-state residents?
It's not the person receiving the services that moves. It's the volunteer. It's the volunteer that has a different. They have the resources
if they can afford to live,
Yeah.
multiple places. And all right, so somebody else will then step in for this volunteer.
There's another volunteer that has been set up that way. So.
And is matching up a problem?
Sometimes. When it doesn't work, it doesn't work. At any point in time, that either the person receiving the services or the volunteer can say, this isn't working, so I step in and we make a change, find somebody else. Sometimes I come on board and help for a little bit.
I was going to say, do you ever do it yourself?
I do sometimes do it.
And what do you find is the biggest obstacle for you to overcome when you're dealing with me? Let's say.
Well, when I come in as a substitute, you don't always know the whole picture, so sometimes it's a little difficult to get things all organized. But basically, I think that's the same as anybody coming on board, the process that setting up to know what exactly is coming in and going out and getting people on board with that. It takes a while. It doesn't happen, overnight, but it always makes a difference. The process.
If you, what would be the average length of time for you, do you feel, to get comfortable and acclimated, of the person that you're helping get comfortable and acclimated to
well, I think
your volunteers or you?
I think that they do a pretty good job of being calm. Mostly, the people are calm. They want to help, and they are listening type people. So all those qualities make the difference about making people feel comfortable and then working together. So I think those are the goals. And sometimes sometimes we have other kind of issues where they don't really want to do what, and then that makes it more difficult, but still, they're still receiving the services, the way of working out.
Well, that's a really good point. I suppose that the person you're working with would actually want to make the changes that
that's the best.
That you're
the
advocating.
best scenario.
And for instance, I hate to keep coming back to me, but because I don't know anybody else that you're dealing with. I mean, I would hate to give up doing some of the things that I know are frivolous, but I derive.
Everybody does.
I derive such pleasure from it.
That's right.
And I know that's a big part
I
of the problem.
think the key is, and I think I'm interesting to see tomorrow, just when my next session is at the Beverly Council on Aging. It's the second session of the financial literacy on a fixed income. That's what I called it. So I'll be interested to see how they do work, how that was for them to really look to see what your needs or wants and where you can cut back. And sometimes the knowledge of just knowing how much you've actually spent on something is worth.
That's always distressing, by the way.
Right, and then, well, maybe I need to do something different somewhere else, or cut back, even like cutting back. You don't have to give up completely. You just have to make different choices.
Tough one.
Absolutely tough. Nobody likes to do it.
No, I know. You kind of get into your lifestyle, even if it's a reduced lifestyle. You don't want to go any further.
Absolutely.
And
but I think the power that comes from knowing, of getting the full picture and then making your own choices. I think that's what makes it work when you yourself decide. And having a guide and a help to do that is helpful, I think.
I bet it would, because I probably am not the only person that doesn't want to. I don't know whether it's I can't make the decisions, or I don't want to make the decision about how to cut back. And I know it's going to be a tough nut for me when
Absolutely.
the time comes. Which, by the way, it's knocking on the door, so I'm going to have to do something. Well, Sarah, thank you so much.
Well, I'm glad for the opportunity to talk to you about the program.
Down to a minute. The time goes by quicker than you think here. And,
That's good.
And it's been just wonderful information. Now, again, tomorrow at the Senior Center, did you say? At what time?
10 to 11.
Okay.
At the Beverly Council on Aging.
And do you do that on a regular basis? Or
This is a new thing that I'm going out to present, the financial literacy on a fixed income. So we're going to look at how they did with tracking their expenses, and then there's a booklet I received about how to protect yourself from scams and frauds, which is a good, the other thing that's really prevalent, that's hard.
And anybody who really needs or feels that they need help from you or advocacy can go to the Beverly Senior Center.
Also call SeniorCare
and they will,
Gloucester.
or SeniorCare, and they will refer them to you. Thanks, Sarah.
It's
been great. Thanks very much. Thank you for watching. I'm Bob Hobbs. We'll see you next time on Living the Good Life.
You've been watching Livin' the Good Life. We always welcome your comments and suggestions for future programs. Call us at 978-921-6017.